Good afternoon, Ms. Meulen, and thank you for taking this interview with Reach a Student.
Of course.
I have a few questions that I would like to ask you. How long have you been at WPS and what subjects have you taught?
All right, I've been at Windermere Prep this is my 6th year now. My first year, we were still pretty small, so I was able to teach both 7th grade Discovering Voice and 8th grade Taking a Stand. And now, after my 2nd year, I became strictly 7th grade, and that's what I've been doing for the past 5 years.
Do you have a story or experience from when you were a student that you think students could learn from today?
Yes, I have lots actually. Probably one of the reasons I became an English teacher was because of so many of those experiences that I had. Both great teachers, certainly, and then also some moments where I really had to learn. And probably the best learning experience I had was when I faltered. And it was in 6th grade. It was for science, and we had to study worms. And I was not really into worms. Still not really into worms. And I had to study for a big worms test. And I normally was a student who could kind of study a night or two before and do okay. And I kept putting it off because I didn't want to study about worms. And sure enough, when I got my grade back, I did not do so well on my worms test. So it was that moment in 6th grade that I learned that I had to find a study strategy and I had to stick to it if I was going to be successful.
Wow, that is a very interesting story. What do you think is the most difficult aspect of student life today?
Without a doubt, I think one of the most difficult things is, number one, you have so many opportunities and figuring out what you want to do. Number two, I think that technology is both your greatest strength, but it can also be such a big distraction too. So I think you all have it a little bit more difficult than some of us who are a little bit older in finding when to be distracted by our technology and when not to be.
What is your favorite assignment that you give to your 7th graders, and what assignment do you consider to be the most challenging?
Okay, favorite assignment by far is the Where I'm From poem, which comes at the end of our Seed Folks unit at the end of the year. And it's when my students really have the opportunity to use their voice that they've discovered. And best of all, I feel like I get to know my students even more. Having spent a whole year with them, I still learn so much. And it's a poem where they have to uncover their history, their ancestry, and also where they want to go. And then the most challenging, I would have to say that probably one of the most challenging is actually this year. I have a new assignment that I've done where I kind of took an old assignment and reworked it. But the students are writing what their verse will be, following a great Walt Whitman poem called O Mio Life. And he asked his readers, if you were to contribute a verse to the world, what would it be? And I feel that my students right now it's a good challenge. It's not hard, it's just challenging to figure out what they want to do with their life, what goals they have, where they see themselves in the future. It's hard sometimes for us to articulate that when we're only maybe 12, 13, 14 years old.
Since the theme of 7th grade is discovering your voice, can you tell us about specific examples where students have successfully exhibited or conquered this overall challenge? And what specifically do you think students should do to lead them to discover their voice?
Great question. I think probably one of the most compelling examples of where students discover their voice is when they have to perform at Voice Live. Because even some of my strongest writers or some of my most outgoing students, it's a challenge to have to get up on stage, number one. Number two, write a poem, and then number three, have to perform that poem in front of the whole school. And so I think that's an opportunity where my students not only discover their voice on the page, but for lack of a better word, but they also discover their voice on the stage too.
As a language arts teacher, what are some suggestions that you can give to 6th graders to better prepare themselves for your class?
Wonderful. Well, being that we do the Move to Middle School program for all those rising sixth graders, that's a great program to get into, and that'll help you with all of your sixth grade classes. I would say for my class in particular, it's going to be very, very important that you have a great organization system, number one, preferably because you're going to be working on your portfolios. And then in general, for my class is called Discovering Voice. So I'd recommend that you come with an open mind and ready to express your opinions and your beliefs.
As an 8th grader, I know that in 7th grade, students focus a lot of time on their portfolios. Why do you think these portfolios are so important, and what are the cornerstones of a great portfolio?
Great question. So one thing that I would definitely recommend for the portfolio, again, is organization. Give yourself that time to really develop a one-of-a-kind portfolio. I always recommend my students to work on their portfolios for about 30 minutes to an hour a week. That's easy. That's the time that you're spending revising your work. That's the time that you're spending adding new video clips from your recital or from one of your lacrosse games. You get to add those in there. Give yourself the time to work. Most of all, realize that it's not just a place for you to upload just classwork. It should really showcase you and all of your accomplishments, your passions, your interests, your hobbies, your achievements. It should be you displayed on a webpage, without a doubt. And the cornerstone of a great portfolio is the student that truly embraced it and documented the story of their year, right? And because in 6th grade, you're gonna have a 6th grade portfolio that documents your whole story of 6th grade. Who you are, what you did, what you accomplished, what your goals were. Same with 7th and 8th grade. And so you leave here with 3 stellar portfolios that showcase and document your entire life in middle school. And even better is that the portfolios are not just something that you do in middle school. They're gonna follow you. As you move into college, a lot of universities now are looking for digital portfolios. So you all you'll be the best of the best, and you'll be top notch because you'll have the experience already in making a one-of-a-kind portfolio.
If there's one thing you'd wish more students in your class did, what would that be?
I wish that more of my students, my students are great writers, and I wish that they had just a little more time maybe on their own to write. But I know that they're so busy that sometimes they don't get it. But I want my students to know just how great they are as writers, being that this class is called Discovering Voice, that they should know that and use that and give themselves a little bit more time to write on their own, because I bet you they would see some pretty great things.
Thank you again for taking this interview with us today.
Of course.